the 10-Minute Teacher Podcast with Vicki Davis. Every weekday, you'll learn powerful, practical ways to be a more remarkable teacher today.
So today we're talking to Tom Loud of Loud Learning about unleashing the potential of students. So Tom, let's start with a story about why you got into teaching in the first place.
In high school, I think I failed more classes than I passed and had a terrible experience. By the end of my junior year, I had reached a GPA of a 1.8. And at the end of that year, I just knew it would be my last year in public school. And in fact, it was. But through a series of circumstances, I became a college graduate 7 years after that and have been in the classroom now for 10 years. And the reason I went into education was for two reasons. And the first reason was that I could be the teacher that I never felt I had. And number two, the second reason is so I could ensure that no child ever experienced the educational journey and experience that I did.
So Tom, with that being your story, what is your advice to us to help unleash the potential of every child?
I think number one, it starts with relationships. We have to build that relationship with kids first. I heard the quote that no significant learning occurs without a significant relationship, and I really think that's true. But the second thing we can do as teachers is we can put on the mindset that we are never going to quit on kids. And I think it goes back to where the pacing of our teaching has to be determined by the learning of our kids and not by a calendar. Third, I would say that we have to be super patient with kids. Don't give easier work or fail kids when they're not understanding or when they're not learning at the pace that we hope they are. But as a teacher, I think we do have to show grit and perseverance with kids and present learning in multiple ways. And failing kids is a direct indicator more of the quality of our teaching, I think, than the ability of our kids.
Oh, but you know, Tom, teaching's hard and it's exhausting to reach the kids who struggle. What do you think the biggest mistake some of your teachers made when you were that kid who struggled your junior year?
It goes back to what I was saying about the relationships. I think that I just didn't have that connection with the teachers. I felt like I was more of a test score, and that learning was the back burner, and the test scores were more the focus of the teachers instead of my potential.
Do you feel like you have a different relationship with your students? And can you give me an example of where you tried to be that teacher that you never had and it did make a difference?
I think the biggest thing with me is the patience thing, to where we just don't quit, and I don't quit. But the funny thing about it is that every day, even though I know it's worth it with these kids, some days, like everybody, I don't necessarily feel it. And when I don't feel it, I have to continually remind myself that staying motivated and that keeping that passion burning is a choice that I have to make. Yeah, I think the biggest thing with me, with my students now, based on my experience as a student, is the patience that I show, and I just don't give up on kids.
So take me inside your brain when you're having that down day and you're like, I'm exhausted. What does the self-talk say to yourself when you just don't know how you're going to do it?
You know, I read a really good book lately by a professor at UT in Knoxville from Dr. Amy Bromell, and the book is called Learning to Be Teacher Leaders. And in the book, she identified 3 characteristics of the really great teachers. And those 3 characteristics are, number one, great teachers are unorthodox. Number 2, they go against the organizational grain. And number 3, they always pose a threat to the status quo. So when I'm having those down days and I don't necessarily feel it, I have to keep that mindset of the great teachers in mind and just put on those characteristics.
It frustrates me, though. Why can't the status quo just be awesome for everybody?
Yeah, it should. But, we're creatures of feeling and emotion. And so we can't always necessarily stay on that high, but we just have to stay as motivated as we can and keep the needs of kids first.
You know, Tom, I do find that the self-talk, what you say to yourself when you're down. I mean, we're our own best motivational speaker, aren't we?
We are. You're right.
And you've got that experience when you were a kid to kind of think back and relate and understand yours, don't you?
I do. Yeah. And, for me, the big turnaround for me was, number one, maturity. I had reached 18 years of old by the end of my junior year. So maturity was a big turnaround for me, but also it was all this frustration that I'd built up. I knew I was better than what my test scores were showing, and I knew that I wasn't only worthy of success, but I was able to. So I heard a quote at the end of my junior year of high school, and right on the verge of when I was quitting school. And the quote was by Charles Tremendous Jones, and the quote said, "The difference between who we are as a person today and who we will be in 5 years is determined by the books we read and the people we meet." So it was really at that time that self-talk really kicked up a notch, and I really became a student of success. One of the first books I read on success was by a guy named Jack Canfield, who started the Chicken Soup for Soul book series. But he wrote a book called The Success Principles, and one of the first pages in the book had a quote by Thomas Edison that said, "If we really knew what we were capable of, we would literally astound ourselves." And ever since that day, I've really been trying to find out what I'm capable of.
You know, and I also love what you do. My pastor, Michael Katz, says that leaders are readers and readers are leaders. And you quoted several books. I mean, This is Motivation Monday. And one big way to motivate ourselves is to really have that self-talk, but to also get quotes that resonate with us. I mean, I'm looking at my office wall and it has quotes all over it. You know, what do we say to ourselves? And then what kind of books do we pour into our mind to help us stay motivated to do this job?
And, you know, I think one of the best ways in 2017 to meet new people and to really have good access, quality of text in front of us is Twitter.
Yeah.
I don't think enough teachers are on Twitter, but just something simple and easy as that can really provide us with exposure to great minds.
Speaking of Twitter, we have cute little birds tweeting in the background that may or may not get edited out. But I just think that, you know, it's just kind of ironic to me. But So, Tom, as we finish up, give us a 30-second pep talk about how to stay motivated this week in our classrooms.
I think we have to look at the root word of motivation. That root word is motive. We have to stay focused, even when we don't feel like it, on why we do what we do. And the main reason we do what we do is because, number one, kids deserve it. And number two, because kids are capable and able of far beyond what we could ever imagine or think. But the main reason is they deserve it. They deserve our best, and they're worth it.
They are. So teachers, get out there, be remarkable this week. And I love in particular what Tom said. I'm going to hang on to this, that the root word of motivation is motive. Remember your motive. Why are you doing this? And right now, if you've lost your noble motive, try to get that back and try to remember that we're in the life-changing business. We're not just teachers. We teach people how to live lives. We unleash human potential. We have got an incredible profession full of meaning, maybe not full of earthly riches, but definitely full of meaning and full of legacy. So get out there and be remarkable this week.
Thank you for listening to the 10-Minute Teacher Podcast. You can download the show notes and see the archive at coolcatteacher.com/podcast. Never stop learning.